Views expressed by CamaPlan podcast guests may not reflect those of CamaPlan. CamaPlan does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by guests, nor does it endorse or recommend any individual or organization. CamaPlan is not an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. You are encouraged to conduct your own due diligence before making investment choices. For any tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other questions, please consult a specialist. Welcome back to the Road to Financial Freedom, where experts share stories and secrets to unlocking financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator focusing on educating investors on how to grow retirement savings faster through alternative investments. I'm Ricky Trong, CamaPlan team member and podcast host. In each episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the many roads taken to financial freedom and how they differ for each guest. Welcome back to the Road to Financial Freedom. Today's guest started out working a W-2 position for multiple tech companies up until about 2.5 years ago. He didn't come from money and was in college debt. Today, he has his own e-commerce company, helping others build and sustain wealth. Help me welcome Will Basta of Ascend Ecom to learn more about his journey. Hey, Will, how are you today?
Hey, happy to be here. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to see you. I know that you've been traveling a little bit, but I'm glad we were able to make this work, and I'm really excited. So please tell us about your background, where you started and where you're at today, and what we're going to chat about.
Of course. Yeah. So I grew up in New York. I know it's funny if I think about back before university and going into university, I actually initially wanted to be pre-med. And I was temporarily and didn't like the clinical side of things in college and was hopping around. And at the end of the day, I just did political science and international studies because I love to travel. And I just thought I might as well just learn about, the world while I figure out things for 4 years. After I graduated, though, I still wanted to be in healthcare at that point. And the only way that I thought made the most sense was to really leverage what I knew I was good at, which is communication and business, interactions with people. And essentially still have that part in the healthcare arena, which essentially led me to health tech and working for first a corporate company called DaVita. They're a large dialysis provider. I worked on their tech side there, really good in partnerships and relationships, sort of developing different softwares for them and providing it to physicians. I was with them for a while, and then I really started going more in the startup scene and it led me to really want to be part of companies that were doing innovative things in the tech arena. That being said, though, during that entire time, I always sort of had a bug for, entrepreneurial, I guess you could call it micro-entrepreneurial investing, getting involved in things when I could based on the means that I had. And throughout that period of time, about 8 to 10 years, towards the latter half of it, I started getting involved in e-commerce. And that's essentially when I met my business partner. We were in a mutual investment. Essentially, I guess you can call it with a competitor. I wouldn't really consider them a competitor of us now, but a competitor at the time, you would look at that on paper. And what we really saw was pretty much a business model that had so much potential in e-commerce that just wasn't executed properly. And essentially, if you fast forward 2.5 years now, we've got a large investment management company. We essentially build Amazon and Walmart businesses for investors who want to diversify their portfolio, or even it might be their first investment, pretty much outside of your typical stocks and real estate. So we run a logistics company, 2 facilities out of Dallas, warehouse facilities, and an office out of Los Angeles. We've got about 350 clients. We did about 30 million in revenue for our clients in 2021. But yeah, that's essentially what we do now. We build businesses for investors and operate them for them in a partnership.
Wow, that's really cool. And where is your company at now? So how long ago did you start this? About 2.5 years ago, correct?
Yeah, at a very small scale. Initially when we started this business, it was really sort of a side thing. We knew I was actually working for a tech company at the time. And it was one of those things where my business partner was in business school at Michigan. And we're really just looking at the idea of hey, we can do this on the side and still do this better. We didn't think it was going to turn into what it is today. And we kept it small in the beginning. We had, I'd say, about 10 clients. We knew we wanted to just sort of prove out what we were doing first. And then we saw that we had something sort of special. That's when I realized, hey, first of all, it's not integrity-wise, it's not right to work for another company while I'm going to double down on this entrepreneurial venture. And number 2, I need to put all my resources in there. And so we made that decision. to really just focus strictly on this business. And in 2021, pretty much in January is when we really went full blown with marketing. And that's when we really grew substantially, when we knew we had the operation down and we had the business model to the degree that we wanted it to be, where we felt comfortable bringing on clients at scale. And again, we, in about a year and a half, we went from 10 clients to roughly 350.
Wow. That's really interesting that you touched on the fact that, it was unfair for you to be working a full-time job as well as running this, because you really wanted to put your heart into it, I feel like. So you also maintained what you had, really learned the business before you started that marketing venture, which I feel like a lot of small businesses and startups, they just, full blown with the marketing right off the bat. And then it gets too much for them to contain and they haven't really perfected that business. So I love that you took the opposite way that most people do. And I feel like that's why it's successful at this time.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, I had the ability to still, and my last company, my boss, he was a founder himself. And, I, at that time, I don't want to be, he's putting his heart and soul into the company. I don't want to give half of myself once I realized it was to the point where it was actually taking time away from the job that I had. But fortunately, I had the ability to stay above water and have a decent salary and a solid income while we were sort of building this on the side. But yeah, exactly. We were patient in this venture. It wasn't something, again, it sort of caught us at a left field in a way, the growth that we had once we realized we sort of had something special. We had the mentality about it, but we didn't know it was going to happen as fast as it actually happened. And I think that's a large reason of why we actually got to where we are and why we're so successful in that sense, is the fact that we were able to really build a solidified foundation before, we had a rush of clients and, there was more publicity about us and that kind of stuff, where when that tends to happen, you start to bust out of the seams. And that's when there's a lot of growing pains, which is very normal. I'm not saying we don't have growing pains right now, but I think it would have been a lot different if we had taken the other route.
Oh, definitely, for sure. So tell me just give me an overview of what a day-to-day looks like with you and a client. How do you get them started? What do you do for them per se? I know it's e-commerce and there's so much of that tossed around these days that there's so many e-commerce, up and coming companies. So what makes you different? What really helps you maintain that client?
Yeah. So, obviously a client comes to us either through word of mouth. Either they're looking for an alternative investment, or they might get caught by an ad, or a friend might be a client, or whatever it may be. They have a consultation call with us. We learn about their background. We really only bring on clients who are already financially comfortable. This isn't an investment that's just going to replace your job immediately or anything like that. It is supplemental income, but it is a true digital asset. And so they are the financial driver of the business. We are the infrastructure and the team that's running and operating the entire thing for them. So the first month when they sign up with us, they pay an upfront fee. We get sort of a strategy aligned of what their working capital is for this venture. Essentially, they pick their platform that they want to have their business on. Primarily, if you're going to be a first-time investor in e-commerce, we always recommend Amazon. It's sustainable. It's been around for a while. We know the platform very, very well, and majority of e-commerce sales are going on that platform in the first place. So it's a good place to start. And we accelerate our clients into that ecosystem by having the infrastructure that we have. But they pay an upfront and we get some housekeeping items set at the beginning. And then our team just goes ahead and starts working on their business. We open up an Amazon seller account and we begin to source products with US wholesalers, US suppliers. It's a lot of data-driven stuff on our end. We have a very expansive team. And 2 warehouse facilities. We just opened our second warehouse facility in Dallas. So the infrastructure right there, the products that we're sourcing for our clients, we source with their capital that we know that are going to be profitable. We send them to our warehouse first. Our team then prepares that packaging and then either sends it off to Amazon's warehouse or potentially directly to an end customer, depending upon the model that we're using. But the client really sits after the first month. The client has communication channels with us, but most of our investors are very, they're business professionals or they're busy professionals. We have teachers all the way up to, it can be in the financial sector, but the commonality between all of them is no one really has time. Right. And they don't have experience in the industry. And so they're essentially paying a premium to get sort of a head start and skip the line in the industry and then have some experts, a team of experts handle the entire investment for them. And so that is pretty much the first, 3 to 6 months. And, once we get past 6 months and the business really starts to move for a client and it really starts to get traction and they really start to see some movement on their investment in terms of ROI, that's 6 to 8 months in. That's when we can really start discussing additional things on maybe augmenting that business, accelerating it a little bit further based on where their capital, because all of our clients have different financial backgrounds. So, there is a personalized approach based on where they want to go with the business and what kind of investment this is for them. Is it their first? Is it their 10th? Is it their 100th? How are they looking at this investment kind of thing? And we draw a lot of parallels with, I like to draw a lot of parallels with sort of like a real estate investment. If you're, this is digital real estate. You're essentially investing online and you're having a storefront online. And, just like if you were to buy rental property or a house, right? And you say you're renting it out in Airbnb, you're charging $400 a night. If you want to raise your rates, what would you do? You'd put in a hot tub. You'd maybe put in a pool. You'd redo the floors, whatever kind of way you want to look at it. We have similar ways to, value the business even more and extend the revenue capabilities by, adding private label products or doing certain things. There's a whole myriad of things we can do, but that's when we get to that discussion once they're about 6 to 8 months in.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So basically it sounds like once the first month is really passed, it's pretty much automated and passive for the investors. Is there, and you said anyone can really do it. You have teachers do it. And we know that teacher salaries are obviously different than, a pure investor salary and things like that. So is it something that, someone just does individually? Do they do it as a group? Can it be done as a group?
Yeah. I mean, we have couples, we have, solo investors, we have, even VCs, venture capital firms, they buy 10, 20 at once, et cetera. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. We have an entry point as low as 20,000 all the way up to, we've had clients spend in the 7 figures with us, but it just varies. And, when you go back to the idea of, someone on a middle income salary, the way that these businesses are accelerated and the way that we grow them is we leverage credit. We teach the clients how to leverage business credit specifically, which, there's courses out there. There's, people that charge for these programs on the importance of business credit and how you can leverage it for investments. And we just do it at no cost because, when a client is successful, then we're successful. And that's why it's a partnership. But the whole goal here is to use the bank's money, not your liquid cash after you invest for working capital. And that's the smartest way to do it. And that's the way we always guide investors to do it. And even if you don't have business credit yet, it's a lot simpler to acquire that than people actually think. So
yeah. I mean, working for a self-directed IRA firm, I can attest to that because, you even connected it to real estate, and that's like a huge part of our real estate investment. Our investors, they all do real estate. So if someone's listening and they do real estate, I mean, it's a light bulb going off in their head that it's, it's like you said, digital real estate. I love how you put that. That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. Did you ever start as just like a Amazon investor on or like Amazon, excuse me, I don't know why I'm blanking, but have you ever seller? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my business partner and I have, 4 or 5 Amazon businesses of ours, that we own ourselves. We also own a supplement business online on Amazon as well. So we got our hands in a lot of different pots. It's not like we are just providing a service and not ingrained in it ourselves. So you have to be part of it yourself to also be aware of how it's evolving, because another reason why we've been so successful is the fact that we're not always spinning the same wheel we were the month before. We were very on top of and very proactive on how the environment, not just with Amazon, but e-commerce, market trends, et cetera, is constantly evolving, especially through a pandemic. Through all the stuff that's happening in the world, on a constant basis. It's been nonstop the last few years. So, you have to be abreast with that. And the best way to be abreast with that is to really be involved in it. So that's how we lead from the top.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate. I mean, I think when we last spoke that I had mentioned that I had a store on Etsy, and even though Etsy is doing, the marketing and everything for you for the most part, I mean, you really need to figure out what trends are, what things people are doing to really stay on top of that and stay relevant. So totally 100% understand where you're coming from. And I love that you ingrained that in yourselves, that you had a baseline of being that seller on Amazon so you can really understand understand what your clients are trying to get done here, because for most of them, it sounds like it's a passive income that, they're going to do on the side besides their regular everyday, investing or, whatever they're going to do. So that's really interesting. And I love that about your company, because I think that, working with you, it's comforting to have that knowledge base behind you.
And a big thing that we focus on too, it's like, yes, it's great to look at it as, yes, this is passive income, right? But the picture that's always missed is it's also an appreciating asset. You build these businesses the right way. And let's tie it back to real estate again. We build these businesses specifically in a way where if you wanted to exit in 2-3 years, it is sellable. It's a compliant business that has a model attached to it that is valued higher than just someone who is selling out of their garage on Amazon. Obviously, if you sell our management service with it, that's obviously a plus too. But, at the end of the day, our investors that buy more than one, a lot of the reasons behind it is to have the malleability to say, hey, I'm going to keep one for passive. I'm going to flip one in 3 years and sell it for 6 figures, whatever it may be. And that's an important aspect, because it is appreciating. And not every Amazon business is going to appreciate in value. It has to be done right. It's got to have the right business model behind it. It's got to be a healthy business. It's got to be compliant. There's a laundry list of things that make a business valued on Amazon. And there's a huge market for Amazon and Walmart businesses. Walmart a little bit behind, obviously, because they're a little bit newer to the game online. But
So I know we had touched on, so some of the people that do this type of investment. Are they entrepreneurs? Like, do they do a lot of entrepreneurs and like cultural, like, is this a startup for that kind of person if they are coming from no background at all?
Yeah. We have, I think our youngest client's like 22.
Oh, wow.
Our oldest is like in their 70s. So, a lot of and it doesn't mean that the one who's 22, it's, this the one who's in their 70s, it's like they've done 10 different investments before. You never really know. Everyone has different backgrounds, but the point I'm trying to get at is that, this could be your first sort of side investment when you have some capital saved. You want your money to work for you, right? So we all know that sitting in the bank is probably the worst thing you can do with your capital. And so at the end of the day, it's like you want to put it either in stocks, you want to put it in some kind of real estate thing. Right now we're in a market where, I'll always believe in real estate long term, but at the end of the day, it's a very inflated market right now. And the stock market is obviously volatile. So what is constantly growing and has historically grown through economic downturns is Amazon. So who doesn't want a piece of a $4.8 trillion, e-commerce market globally?
Yeah.
And this is the next investment out of that portfolio. So.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned globally, because really Amazon, like, it just started out as a book, like, selling website right out of a garage. Right. And now it's global. So that is crazy. Like, how many people it really touches.
Yeah. I just had a lunch with an old university friend of mine who worked for Amazon for a while out here. He actually lives in Spain. And, what his job was actually to source land throughout Europe for Amazon Prime specifically, because the demand is so high for storage. And Amazon was like, I think the number he gave me last year on this was that they're hemorrhaging at like 30 million a month because they didn't have enough warehouse space. That's in the EU specifically. So, the UK market is something we're going to be expanding on later, probably next year at some point. But yeah, it is a global business. And it's not just about Amazon, it's e-commerce in general. By 2040, NASDAQ predicted that 95% of the retail market is going to be e-commerce. Right now it's at 15%. So, you look at that fact, it's like, why wouldn't you invest in something that's got that much growth out of it, regardless of what happens in the next 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I worked in retail for years, and I saw over that time that the amount of people in store was decreasing as the amount of, sales online were increasing. So, it's completely just following that path. And I agree. I think it's really going that way. Yeah.
Yeah. People, there's a theory of just like, not necessarily a theory, but saying, the pandemic was just sort of like a bubble, et cetera. No, the pandemic just accelerated the inevitable.
Yeah.
So, you have the person who never would have shopped online originally, and they had to shop online during the pandemic. And now they are comfortable shopping online. Therefore, now they are going to be a lifelong online shopper.
Yeah.
And there is millions of those. So like, if you look at it that way, that's how you should look at it. Not like, oh, people only shopped online because they couldn't go out. No, there were people that were anti-online and now they will shop online because they had no choice at that time. And now they're comfortable with the concept of it. So
yeah, especially with, Amazon Prime and, one day delivery, I feel like we're all so spoiled anymore that, like, especially around the holidays, and they're like, oh, it's going to be 3 to 5 business days for shipping, because of whatever reason. And you're like, why isn't it here tomorrow or in like 2 hours? Like, it's really spoiled us. I love that. I mean, one way it's great. On the other hand, not so great because, it's entitlement, but whatever, that's what it is, So you had mentioned earlier, just circling back to, forecasting e-commerce. What kind of data do you really like take notice of to really show the forecasting of the e-commerce growth?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had one of my directors here who's more of a data person, but essentially at a very high level, I'll explain it. In terms of trends for products and how we look at things, there's historical data based on the last 2.5 years of running this business that we leverage. There's also predictive data, and there's also seasonal trends. There's a combination of all of that, and we use multiple softwares that scrub data across the internet based on search trends and stuff like that. And then we just know what we'll be selling at the same time each year. And then you have the new stuff that's going to pop out, and it's a little bit more risk because you don't know exactly what it's going to be, but that's more of the predictive side. But it's the idea of doing a balance of predictive and historical data in terms of product sourcing. And that's really how we source products and why we source products and why they are specific products. For example, if you have like, the slowest time of the year for most of e-commerce is January or February. Things pick back up again in April, May, June. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times it's, outdoor stuff, patio furniture, things that are associated with the weather getting better. There's those basic principles. But then there's obviously just the data aspect of it. And we have a team that's large enough where we also just do manually scrubbing of products. We even have boots on the ground in the Dallas area. When I say boots on the ground, I literally mean we go to liquidation centers throughout Texas for products that you cannot find anywhere online just to sell for our clients at 70% margins. Things like Dyson vacuums and Sonos speakers and things that are insane. And we're the only one in the industry that does that. But we hit it from all different corners, because it mitigates risks across the investment. And it also opens doors to literally 70% margin, which you do not really see anywhere on a brand name product. Yeah. That's normally something you would get from, a private label product, if you get lucky. So.
Wow, that's really cool. And I love that you have people actually like manually going to these places and looking at that.
There still is some brick and mortar involved here, as digital as it all is.
That's great.
We've got 80 employees in Dallas, and the majority of them are just, working in the warehouse logistic wise, but we also have a team that goes once a week when we find certain things to different liquidation centers and actually find stuff that we know based on data and research that we can flip on client stores for a margin of at minimum 30%. So,
wow. And you had just opened that not too long ago, that Dallas facility, right?
The second facility just opened. Well,
Are they all in Dallas?
They're both in Grand Prairie, which is a suburb of Dallas. They're 10 minutes from each other. Okay. So the first one opened last fall, and obviously, with the growth and everything, the fact is we don't store that much product, so you can have a lot of clients in a smaller warehouse. Our warehouse is like 15,000 square feet. The first one, and the second one, you look at all the logistical setup that we had and where we could have done things better, and we just applied that to the second warehouse. And I'm not going to take the credit for it because my business partner is the logistical mastermind behind this. And he's the one who's in Dallas right now, really finalizing that as we launch the second warehouse. But it's larger by 10,000 square feet, and it's going to change our output 20x. When I say output, I mean the amount of packages we can get per day and actually push out to Amazon warehousing or to end customers, which has a huge impact on just the clients and just the way the business flows and how it streamlines, and just the benefits of not using a 3PL center, which a lot of other companies will use a third-party logistics company, which is just shared by 100 different companies. We're only to send clients using our warehouse. So that's huge because prioritization is obviously there. Yeah. And we use a FIFO system, which is first in, first out. As products come in, those are the first ones that go out that day or the next day and so on. So
nice. And it's nice to have an in-house logistics person because they can really take a view of what's going on and how it can be made better. So, I mean, that's always the benefit of that. It's not everyone's, wheelhouse, but when you have that down, it's awesome.
No, it's great. It's great. I mean, honestly, like it's not my side of the business specifically. So,
right.
I can't take all the credit for it, but when I go out to Dallas, I'm just like shocked on how, and we have an open door policy too. So if you're an investor, if you want to be an investor, if you're a current, whatever it may be, our doors are always open in Dallas. So you can always come get a warehouse tour, which I think is a very unique, awesome thing because you can see the nuts and bolts of the operation. And if you are an investor, you can see your packages sort of through their life cycle, like the supply chain, which is cool. And the same thing with Los Angeles and our office, which reopens again in September. Right now it's a renovation, but the whole point is about transparency. That's what we're all about. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. Especially if you have someone handling your business for you, you don't want to feel disconnected from it. So I feel like that would really put them in the midst of everything and really make them feel connected to that business and continue to want to do business with you. And that's a great outlook. I love that.
Totally. Going back to the digital world, like that's the thing. It's everything is digital these days. So there is a comforting factor of the fact that even if you never visit us, you can if you want to. Which I think is a huge thing. Has a lot of impact.
That's great. And especially, really streamlining everything in the new facility. And that's awesome. I feel like there's really great things ahead for you. What about personally? What kind of investments do you do personally? Besides, what you have going on, do you invest in other things outside of this? Let me know a little bit about that.
I'm very into alternative investing. And I say alternative, I mean very, very alternative investing.
Okay.
There's a few things going on right now that I've recently invested in. An independent film, because I'm in Los Angeles and I have friends who are actors. And I invested in a film that should be probably getting released sometime early next year. Okay. Also in some land in Indonesia and Bali, as well as 10% ownership of a restaurant that launches in September. I have some friends who live there as well. And then a clean water project in Pakistan. So that's something I'm really, really excited about. That's probably my largest investment out of all of them. That's something that is very, very long term. But my sister used to live in Pakistan, and one of her friends is still there who works for the World Health Organization, or did. And she's trying to fix the water issue there because there's a massive problem throughout the Middle East with clean water. And she's got a great, great, great innovative venture going on in terms of what they're doing the project wise. So I'm excited about that. And we'll probably be going out there at some point this year just to check it out, go from there.
Wow, definitely. Well, you'll have to keep us abreast of all that stuff. And maybe if you could talk about it on a future podcast, that would be awesome to learn more about. If there's other things that maybe some of our, listeners would be interested in investing in as well, that could be, a really great connection for you with them. Also with the e-commerce,
Totally.
I think that would be great.
Even, if you want to go back to more of the traditional side of things, we do own also real estate in Venice, California. Okay. So we have a eco-luxury real estate brand that our first property is live right now. It's currently rented out.
Wow.
And the second property is getting renovated right now, which is pretty much going to have 4 units, but it's 2 separate houses on one plot that are separated. But the whole goal is to be obviously eco-friendly, solar panels, products that are not, affecting the environment as negatively as most of the stuff out there.
Okay.
And really pushing that kind of brand. That's fairly new, that launched in the last couple of months for us. But that's where the real estate ventures are right now.
I like
my
that
business partner and I.
That's great. I love that you guys are not only about wealth sustainability, but also eco sustainability. So I love that those can go hand in hand. That's really, really interesting. Well, I think what you're doing is really cool. And I just hope the best for you with this company. It just keeps growing, and you guys can open another facility somewhere outside of Dallas, maybe.
Honestly, the next move is probably going to be somewhere in South Florida or Nevada potentially.
Wow,
we'll see.
That's
but
great.
The quickest turnkey was to just move one down the street and double the size.
Hey, why not? You got to do it
fast.
Yeah. You got to do what's best for your company, especially close by. You said possibly Europe's in the future as well, or?
Yep. Yeah. I have some contacts in the UK, and that's probably going to be our first international step. Is going to be first our American investors will have the opportunity to sell in the UK, Canada, and the UK.
Wow.
And then eventually that will lead to us actually promoting investments for UK citizens and EU citizens as well down the line. But there's a lot of complexities involved with that, but it's actually not as difficult as you would think. It just takes a lot of time. And right now things are on a fast train. So we need to get through Q4 this year and hit a slow point where we can sort of focus on that kind of stuff, which would be probably sometime around January and February next year.
Yeah, once the holidays are over, things are kind of at a lull. So that's nice.
Yeah, there's some downtime.
Not to look forward to downtime, but to have great things happen in downtime. So I think what you're doing with your time, as we always say, having that time freedom is very important, especially when you're running your own company. So using that time, especially when it's slower, to better your business. I mean, I think that's a really great outlook on things and how you run.
Yeah, it's always about, when there is time to think outside of what's going on in the business, it's okay, how can we make this better? How can we innovate? R&D, all that kind of stuff internally. And then on a personal side, and also just my business partner in general, we think of other ways we can invest in different things. And it always sort of comes back to, at the end of the day, all of our clients, they might just invest in one e-commerce business, but if you bring value to them once, we're always going to be offering new things, and it's not going to be just in e-commerce. And so we look at some of them as really lifelong clients that we find new niches, new ways to make money online, digitally, whatever it may be. And we prove them out first, and then we turn those into an offering for current clients. And they're the first ones that get an option at that as well. So that's how we look at it. We look at it as sort of an investor network. People ask why we do this. There's reasons. You can't have multiple Amazon stores. You can, but it's extremely complex. So it's easier to build a network with that. Yeah. But the real reason I really believe in is really building an investor network. And it's extremely diverse. Yeah, we have a lot of real estate investors who line up and want to invest with us. But like I said before, school teachers, fresh out of university, retirees, whatever it may be, all different backgrounds. And that's what makes it sort of unique, diverse, and cool to look at the future in terms of bringing other opportunities to them down the line.
I mean, you said it perfectly. I couldn't have said it better. What is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you started, or advice you would give yourself now?
That's a good question. Throw me on the spot here.
Ooh.
What I would tell myself now, I mean, this is as great things are going, it's obviously stressful, but you have to realize that it's one day at a time. So, when things are, we're a big company in terms of how we approach things. We're big on facing the fire when they do happen, because no company is perfect, right? We face it with integrity, whether it's stressful or not with our clients. We find a resolution, we rectify it, and we move past it, right? But what I would tell myself earlier on would be like, because, being a first-time business owner like this, I almost didn't expect ever to, you think you're in some kind of, it's like Disneyland, like there's never going to be a problem. To pretty much tell myself that you are going to run into a lot of hiccups along the way, but just know that, the success that you have means that you can get through all of them, and then just be positive through every single, because the negativity, when you let the negativity hit you and you have sort of a bad day owning a company or running an organization, that tends to bleed into other things, and it might affect how you are, even subconsciously, how you interact with your employees. And not saying that's what I do now, because I don't, but it's something that's very, very important to keep because it can be a very stressful environment. You're working 24/7. Your phone is always available for everyone, and everyone's reporting to you, and there's always something going on, and it can be stressful, but it is okay to take a step out, take a deep breath. The business is not going to burn down if you take a day to yourself and take some deep breaths and move through whatever, hiccups you have. So not sure if that answered your question or I just beat around the bush, but
no, that's great. Yeah, definitely. Take a deep breath and, just be positive. I think that's like a lot of lessons that people need to learn through life, is just stay positive and it'll all work out in the end. But sometimes there are those hiccups or road bumps, going back to...
I mean, we're all human, we're all human. So it's impossible to always stay positive, but just know that, whenever there are those times, it's good to step outside of the box for a minute and be like, okay, well, you're very fortunate this is going on. You can fix this. This is all just, you're worrying. That the concept of worrying is worrying about something that, you're freaking out about something that hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
So the whole concept of worrying to me is just ridiculous when you think about it that way. It's like, we worry so much about every little thing every day, you know, and it's worrying about something that literally hasn't happened yet, and you don't even know what's going to happen. So I try my best not to worry. That's my point.
Awesome. I gotta take that advice to heart. I gotta do that. I love it. So just a few more things here. Where can we find you easily if we want to get involved in your investments or just learn more about you in general? Tell me a little bit about your websites, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.ascendecom.com. It's ASCENDECOM.com. You can learn, you know, at a high level about our programs, you know, some specifics about us, specifically how we do things. There's some videos on there, facts, FAQs, stuff like that. You can also book a call directly with our partnership team for just a consultation. We are not salesy at all. So our thing is really, that call is really just to learn about what your background is and give you some information. It's more educational than anything, and then take it from there. Our Instagram is ascend_ecom. That's ASCEND_ECOM. We post on there the most, pretty much daily, updates about business models, releases about certain things, etc. That's probably our robust social media platform. We obviously have YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. And you can book through pretty much all of those. You can find a vessel to book a call with us. So
awesome. And then the last question that I really want to know that we're trying to ask all our guests here this season is, what does financial freedom mean to you or look like to you?
Yeah, I've asked this question to myself a lot of times, and it's. I think obviously everyone will have a different answer for this. For me specifically, because it's the things that I love the most, which are my family, the people that I love around me, the freedom of travel, and the freedom of eating what I want to eat. And the way that I look at financial freedom is if I can support the people that I love around me, in whether it's dire times or whatever it may be, and also be able to give back to causes. That's financial freedom, and being able to also not worry about, you know, putting the avocado on my Chipotle burrito because it's $3 extra.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, it could be a lot deeper than that, but I wanted to simplify it on that answer. That's really what it is. It's you know, and you know, right now there's a lot more layers to that, but that's the way I look at it. So.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, financial freedom to me would definitely be guac because it's always extra. So I get that. Oh, man. Yeah. Will, that's amazing. Thank you for ending on such a great note there. I love that. I think you're so positive, and I really wish you so much success with everything you're doing and in your future projects as well. Please feel free to let us know how that's going. Any last words today that you want to say or advice that you can give out?
Not much. I think you asked the right questions today, and it's been amazing chatting with you. And, you know, I'd love to come back on again. And, you know, a lot of things are going to progress with us over the next year and with people all over the place. So, you know, I'd love to sort of touch base with you guys, you know, whether it's 6-9 months down the road, and see how things are, and maybe have a conversation about something completely different. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope, I wish you luck with all your endeavors, and
likewise.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to thank you for being here today and spending some time with us. You know, financial freedom is financial freedom time, freedom. And you were able to spend that with me today. So I really appreciate that. I just want to give you a big thank you. I also want to thank our sponsor, CamaPlan, and our producers, Honeycomb Productions. And of course, again, Will Basta. Please make sure to check out our QR code, if you're on YouTube. You can definitely get all his links quickly from there. They will be in the show notes as well. But check out ascendecom.com. He's on LinkedIn and his Instagram. You can always book a call easily through any of those access points. And if you want to know more information about self-directed IRAs with CamaPlan, please come to CamaPlan.com and you can request a consult with an expert. You can also view our media library for future webinars and past webinars, and you can just open an account today. So thank you so much for everyone's time, and we'll catch you again on the road to financial freedom.